Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to my video about rifle scope basics. Now, if this is the first time you've been to my channel, make sure and stomp that subscribe button down there and hit the notification so that you'll be alerted when I come out with a new video. The reason that I'm saying this is I give away a shitload of scopes on this channel. About once every 4 to 6 weeks, I'll give away a scope. So it may save you from having to buy a scope if you'll subscribe, hit the notifications. Just something to think about. All right, now to start this thing off, let's talk about the numbers. When you get ready to shop for a scope, other than the brand name, the first thing you're going to see are the numbers. Now on a typical 3 to 9 by 40, which is a very vanilla scope, the 3 means that that's the lowest magnification the scope will go to. So if you set the scope on 3, the image that you see downrange will appear 3 times larger. 9 is the same way. It'll appear 9 times larger. And it's a variable power, so you can turn it all different magnifications in between, whatever suits your eye. Bear in mind, the higher the magnification goes with a scope, normally it starts getting a little darker and it becomes more critical in the build quality. You need better lenses to turn that magnification up. The other type of number that you'll see will be on a fixed power scope. It doesn't have a variable power magnification, so it'll be something like a 10 by 42, which means it's a 10 power scope all the time. There's no adjusting it, and the lens will be 42 millimeter. That's what that last number means, measured across the lens. It's 42 millimeter diameter. A 50 is a 50 millimeter. Just that simple. Now, everything else being equal, the larger the millimeter of the objective lens and the lower the power of the scope, the brighter it's going to be. Now, build quality, lenses, and everything else come into play here. But everything else being equal, the lower powered scope with the largest objective will be the brightest. This is the reason most hunters use a lower powered scope. The other advantage of a lower powered scope is the huge field of view. Check this variable power scope out at 100 yards when I run it from the low end to the high end. Not only do you see the target grow with it, this is the first focal plane scope, but you also see the field of view shrink dramatically. The other number you're going to notice when you're scope shopping will be the diameter of the tube. 95% of the scopes out there are either 1 inch or 30 millimeter. Each has its own advantages. When it comes to a 1 inch scope, something like this super lightweight SWFA right here comes in under 10 ounces. It literally weighs about what your wallet weighs. Where something like a Night Force bench rest weighs what a 6-pack of beer weighs. So if you're going to have a lightweight rifle, it doesn't make any sense to have a super heavy scope. Now, if you're bench rest shooting, varmint shooting, you're not going to have to tote the gun a long ways. The weight of the scope doesn't matter. But everything else being equal, I prefer a lighter weight scope. Okay, let's talk about the focus on the scope. Now, there's basically 2 places to focus the scope. Some only have 1. The eyepiece is the main focus. What the eyepiece does is focus the reticle or the crosshair that you're looking at. That's all it does. Now, it'll occasionally alter the image that you're seeing downrange, but its purpose is simply to focus the reticle, nothing else. Now, on a fixed objective scope like this, there is no place to focus the image downrange, which is where a side focus or a front objective focus comes in handy. It not only focuses the image, it takes out parallax. All right, now what's parallax? Parallax is when the image that you're looking at downrange and the reticle in the scope are not on the same plane. If they're not on the same plane, as you shift your head around behind the scope, the reticle will move on the target. Once it's parallax free, the reticle will appear to be frozen on the target. And it doesn't matter where your eye is located, exactly dead centered in the scope or not. When you look through it, it'll appear to be frozen on the target. That's what your goal is. Once it's parallax free, it's downhill from there. You just pull the trigger and knock his ass in the dirt. All right, let's talk about the reticle choices when it comes to buying a new scope. There's basically 3 different types. There's a standard reticle like the duplex, German number 4, a post, a crosshair with a dot, or just a simple crosshair. They're meant to aim precisely at one distance only, which covers 95% of the hunters out there. Once you get it set up for that one distance, you know your scope will be zeroed at that distance. You don't have to think about anything else. The next type of reticle are the ballistic reticles. These are set up for popular calibers, and the way that they work is when you look through the scope, Normally you'll zero your rifle at 100 yards. And if you use your rangefinder and you realize the animal is 350, 400 yards, you can go down the reticle and it'll let you know what your holdover will be at 350, 400, 500 yards, whatever it is. Pretty cool, huh? The other type are the angular measurement reticles. These are MOA and mills. Now on the mill and MOA reticles, it's an angular measurement, so the further you go out, the bigger the distance is. At 100 yards, 1 mil radian is approximately 3 inches. 1 MOA is 1 inch. So on a mil radian reticle, what you normally run into is it'll be 1/10 of a mil per click, basically 1/3 of an inch per click. With an MOA, it'll be about 1/4 of an inch per click. Now that's measured at 100 yards. As the distance goes out, these measurements increase. The advantage to a mill or an MOA reticle is if you have a ballistic chart or you have somebody spotting for you or you have a spotting scope or a pair of binoculars that are calibrated in mills or MOA, you can look at it, figure out the distance, chart your drop, and you can dial directly to make sure that you have impact, or you can use the reticle's reference points for holdover. It's a lot more precise, and that's the reason that you see so many mill and MOA reticles out there. MOA is starting to fade a little bit and mill is becoming the standard, but one is not any better than the other. All right, as long as we're talking about reticles, let's talk about illumination. Now, illumination to me is the most overhyped feature in rifle scopes. Here's what happens the majority of the time with illumination. If you turn the illumination on and it's really bright and it's really low light conditions, it's going to be like a cop shining a flashlight in your freaking eyes. You can't see past it. There's a reason the cop does that. He don't want you seeing his ass. So if you turn the illumination on and it's too bright, what you have a chance of it doing is either haloing, or it's just like a headlight and you're trying to see who's in the car behind you. You can't see shit past that bright ass light inside that scope. The other downside for me to illumination is every one I've had, I forget to turn the damn thing off and all it does is run the battery down. Illumination is something, for some guys, they have to have it. For me, I could care less about it. All right, now the turrets on a scope. These are going to come in basically one of two ways. They're going to be covered like these turrets are for hunting scopes, which means you don't have to worry about anything moving the adjustments that you have the scope already calibrated at. The other type are the exposed turrets like this. Now, to be fair, I prefer exposed turrets, whether I'm hunting or not. I've never had one move in a hunting situation. A lot of the new exposed turrets lock like this. There's also the hybrid turrets like this Vortex, where the elevation turret is exposed, the windage turret is capped, which makes a lot of sense because you're not going to be dialing for the wind. You're basically going to be dialing only for the elevation. Now, most of the turrets move one of three ways, either in mil radians, MOA, or they'll move like 1/4 of the 1/8 inch. There's not one that's any better for the other. The hardest thing about a new scope is deciding on what your cost is. You know your budget better than I do. My dad used to tell me there's 3 things in the world that you get your money's worth on: optics, liquor, and hookers. You want to spend as much as you can afford to spend because you're not going to regret it later.